Woman was God's second mistake, a sentence that feels like an emotional bomb. But behind it isn't just emotion, it's philosophy. That quote comes from nature. But before NZ said it, someone else did the thinking. Someone who shaped his entire worldview. Arthur Schopenhauer, a man who didn't sugarcoat life. He believed love was a trick and women were nature's most powerful weapon. Painful, yes, but we're not here to cancel difficult ideas. We're here to understand where they came from and why they still feel real to so many men today. This video will take you deep into the mind of a man who believed life itself was a trap, and that romance was one of its most dangerous illusions. It won't be easy, but it might be necessary. Let's explore the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. A philosopher without illusions. Arthur Schopenhauer was not the kind of thinker who tried to make people feel good. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't tell people what they wanted to hear. He told the truth, the hard, uncomfortable kind. He believed that life wasn't fair, it wasn't peaceful, and it definitely wasn't logical. According to Schopenhauer, life is ruled by something much deeper than reason or morals, a blind, invisible force that lives inside all of us. He called it the will. But this isn't your willpower. It's not something you control. This will is not personal. It's not emotional. It's a natural force that exists in every living thing. From the smallest insect to the most intelligent human, the will is always working, and it has only one goal: to keep life going, to survive, to grow, to reproduce. That's all it wants. It doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you suffer. It doesn't care about love, success, or even morality. It just wants life to continue endlessly. Now, here's the painful part. Schopenhauer believed that humans, both men and women, are just tools used by this will. We think we are free. We think we are choosing our careers, our partners, our dreams. But in truth, we are being pulled by the will like puppets on invisible strings. Even our strongest emotions, love, anger, desire, are not fully ours. They are strategies used by the will to keep the cycle going. Men and women might look like they're making choices, but often they are just acting out nature's deeper plan. This is where Schopenhauer begins building his most controversial ideas, especially about the roles of men and women in this system. And once you understand this idea, that life is not about your joy, but about survival, everything else he says starts to make dark, painful sense. Why we are never satisfied. Schopenhauer believed that we are not truly free. We like to think we are in control of our lives, choosing what we want, where we go, who we love. But deep down, we are being pulled by something deeper. The will. This invisible force inside us. The will is always working, always pushing us. It's not loud, it's not logical, but it never stops. It makes us want things. And as soon as we get them, it makes us want something else. Schopenhauer said that life is like a pendulum swinging back and forth over and over between two painful feelings: pain and boredom. When you don't have something, you feel pain. You crave it. You chase it. You think, if I get this, I'll finally be happy. But once you finally get it, you feel good for a little while. Then the feeling fades. You get used to it. You get bored. And then you want something else. So you start chasing again. This is the cycle. Desire, pain, satisfaction, boredom, new desire. It never ends. And this is exactly what the will wants. It keeps you running, always moving, never resting. Because as long as you're chasing, you're helping life continue. And that's all the will truly cares about. It doesn't care if you're miserable. It doesn't care if you're tired. It only wants you to keep desiring, keep working, keep surviving. Now imagine this in the context of relationships. You fall in love. It feels amazing, passionate, magical. But over time, that passion fades. You begin to notice flaws. You feel restless. Maybe you even start to want someone new. That too is the will. It keeps you emotionally chasing, not because you're broken, but because you are being used by something bigger. Understanding this is painful, but it also reveals why satisfaction never lasts and why chasing it endlessly only leads to more pain. So how does all of this connect to women? According to Schopenhauer, woman is not just a person. She is the purest, most direct tool of the will. Not because she's evil, not because she consciously chooses it, but because nature built her that way. Her body, her emotions, her instincts, all of it, Schopenhauer said, was shaped by the will's goal to protect life and continue the species. Unlike men who may chase dreams, ideas, or higher meanings, women by nature stay grounded in the present. They focus on the things that are essential for survival: home, children, security, comfort, stability. Now, this doesn't mean women are shallow or weak. That's not what Schopenhauer was saying. What he believed is that woman's power is practical, emotional, and instinctive. She isn't built to chase abstract truths. She's built to guard life, to keep it going generation after generation. In his view, that's not a flaw. It's simply her design, her role in the larger system of the will. To Schopenhauer, this wasn't an insult. It was a metaphysical fact, part of the hidden machinery behind life itself. Women, he said, are like nature's protectors. They are the bridge between the will and the real world. Their instincts make them perfect for nurturing, for building families, and for managing daily survival. They are not concerned with grand ideas or eternal truths, not because they can't be, but because the will has given them a different mission. In Schopenhauer's words, woman is by nature meant for the home and for reproduction. She is the will's most perfect creation. This is why he believed women don't resist the will. They are the will in its most natural form. They live by it. They express it. They carry it forward through birth, through care, through emotion. And because of this, they hold more unseen power than most men realize. Power not of strength or reason, but of biological influence, emotional pull, and survival instinct. To Schopenhauer, that made woman unstoppable not by choice, but by design. The inherent paradox in this view is that women are seen as both powerful and passive. Powerful in their ability to nurture, maintain, and sustain life. Passive because they are deeply connected to the will, not because of conscious choice, but because of their natural design. They aren't fighting against the force of survival. They are, instead, aligning with it. They are the keepers of the human race's continuity, whether by instinct or by will. This view, although extreme, sets the stage for understanding Schopenhauer's ideas about relationships and love. So where does that leave man? According to Schopenhauer, man is different. He's not just another tool of nature. He's the only creature who can say no to the will, while woman follows the will naturally, focused on life, survival, and the present moment. Man has the strange ability to resist that pull. He can go against his instincts. He can suffer for something that has no survival value. He can fight and die, not for food, not for safety, but for things like honor, truth, or beauty. He can spend years writing a book that no one asked for. He can paint something the world doesn't understand. He can go to war over an idea. He can even give up comfort completely for a vision, for meaning, for the unknown. This, Schopenhauer said, is man's greatest power and also his greatest curse. Because once a man sees the will, once he realizes he's been used by it his whole life, he starts to question everything. He doesn't just follow his desires anymore. He begins to ask, why do I want this? Is this really me, or just the will controlling me? That moment of awareness, that moment when a man wakes up and sees the game, is when he becomes dangerous. Because now he can choose something higher. He can create. He can rebel. He can deny the will and live for something that goes beyond survival. To Schopenhauer, this is what separates man from all other creatures, including woman. Woman lives for life. Man can live for meaning. She is the force that continues the species. He is the only one who can step outside that system and ask, is this all there is? But this freedom comes at a cost. Because once you resist the will, you begin to suffer in a new way. You feel isolated. You see the world differently, and you carry a burden that others can't understand. But that's what makes man, in Schopenhauer's eyes, not just different, but potentially great. Not because he's stronger, but because he can say no. Now, let's talk about romantic love. The thing we're told is the most beautiful part of life. But according to Schopenhauer, it's one of the biggest lies. He believed that romantic love is a trap, a trick played by nature to get us to reproduce. It feels personal. It feels magical. You think you found the one. But behind the emotion, behind the butterflies in your stomach, there's something else at work. The will. It's not you who's choosing. It's the will choosing through you, using your body, your emotions, and your thoughts to do one thing: create more life. That's it, Schopenhauer said. This is why men are attracted to youth, beauty, and softness. Not because it's their type, but because those signs point to fertility, to a healthy woman who can bear children. And women, they're pulled towards strength, money, power, status. Not because they're gold diggers, but because nature designed them to look for the best protector, the best provider, someone who can keep them and their child safe. That's what the will wants, and it uses romantic feelings to get it. All the poetry, all the soulmate stories, all the deep emotions, they're just a costume, a cover-up. Nature is dressing up a biological strategy as something spiritual, so that we don't notice what's really happening. And once the job is done, once a child is born, the illusion fades, the passion dies, the fireworks go out, and you're left with responsibility, support, survival, routine. What once felt like wild love now feels like a contract, and the will doesn't care because it got what it wanted. It used you, then it moved on. That's Schopenhauer's view. It sounds cold, it sounds cruel. But for anyone who's ever watched passion fade after marriage, for anyone who's seen love turn into duty, it might feel uncomfortably true. Because maybe love isn't what we thought it was. Maybe it's not freedom at all. Maybe it's nature's most beautiful prison. Now we come to the part that made Schopenhauer truly feared by society. Marriage. He didn't just dislike it. He called it a trap, especially for men. To him, marriage was never really about love. It was about biology, about the will, doing whatever it takes to protect and continue life. He said, a woman may marry for love, but what she's really doing, even if she doesn't realize it, is locking in protection and support for herself and her future children. That's not evil. That's not manipulation. That's nature. The will is using her to secure survival. And the man, he thinks he's following his heart. He thinks he's found his soulmate. But in truth, he's giving up everything. His freedom, his focus, his mission in life. All for a feeling that, according to Schopenhauer, was never really his. It was planted in him by the will to make him submit. He's not in love. He's being used. This might sound brutal. It might even sound bitter. But for Schopenhauer, this wasn't just a cold idea. It was personal. Because behind his theories was a broken heart. Before Arthur Schopenhauer became a dark philosopher, he was just a boy with a mother he couldn't connect with. Her name was Johanna Schopenhauer, a smart, successful, well-known writer in her time. She wasn't a quiet, traditional woman. She was bold, independent, respected in high society. She hosted famous literary salons in Germany and lived a life full of conversation, travel, and books. But to Arthur, she was cold, distant, emotionally unavailable. He saw her as vain, shallow, and fake. She saw him as gloomy, arrogant, and difficult. Their relationship was a war full of harsh letters, constant arguments, and deep resentment. And that emotional pain never healed. So when Schopenhauer later wrote about women being manipulative, attention-seeking, or emotionally unstable, he wasn't just thinking like a philosopher. He was still speaking like a son who never felt truly loved. He didn't just form an idea. He formed a defense. His theory about women wasn't born in peace. It was born in pain. The pain of never receiving warmth from the first woman in his life. And when that kind of pain is deep enough, it doesn't stay small. It grows. It becomes a belief. A belief that says, if my own mother couldn't love me, maybe love itself is a lie. That's why his writings feel so sharp, so bitter, so unforgiving. Because he wasn't just analyzing women. He was building a wall between himself and the kind of love he never got. It was easier to say all women are controlled by instinct than to admit he still needed connection. It was easier to call them dangerous than to risk being hurt again. So what many call misogyny might actually be a wound, not a hatred of women, but a fear of them. A fear of how much power they have over the hearts of men, especially the ones who needed love the most and never found it. Understanding this doesn't mean we excuse his words, but it helps us see the human behind the thinker. Because at the core of Schopenhauer's coldest ideas, there was once a boy trying to make sense of why his mother never held him the way he needed. Schopenhauer didn't just write critically about women. He didn't just sound bitter. He was something even more vulnerable. He was afraid. Not because he thought women were dangerous in a violent way, but because he saw them as the most powerful tool used by the will, the invisible force that keeps life going. And what was that tool? Desire, especially sexual desire. Schopenhauer believed that desire was the trap. He said, a man can be intelligent, disciplined, focused. He can build a life full of meaning. He can find his mission, his direction, and walk with strength. But then comes the test. A woman enters the picture not with weapons, not with force, but with beauty, emotion, seduction. And suddenly everything begins to fall apart. The man forgets who he was. He gives up his mission for a moment of connection. He trades his direction for the feeling of love. He tells himself he's following his heart, but in truth, he's being pulled by the will. He doesn't see it, but he's losing everything. His clarity, his strength, his edge. He starts to orbit around her. He becomes needy. He loses the very thing that made him attractive, his independence, his purpose, his focus. And the worst part, she notices, she feels the shift. And slowly, silently, she loses respect for him. Not because she's cruel, but because a woman cannot deeply love a man who doesn't have his own center. A man without purpose becomes a man she cannot trust. And that is the final tragedy. Not that he loved, but that he lost himself in that love. Schopenhauer's warning is cold, but it's clear. Desire is not always your truth. Sometimes it's the will using you to serve life, not yourself. And if you're not careful, you'll give everything you've built for something that was never truly yours. This doesn't mean you should hate women. It doesn't mean you should fear love. It means you must know yourself and never give up your mission for a feeling, no matter how intense it is. A woman can walk beside you, but she should never become your destination. Because the moment you make her your whole world, you risk losing the man you were born to become.